Just a few days ago, we had the highly anticipated Netflix version of Comic-Con, ta-dum! To be quite honest, I knew before I ever watched it, I only really cared about one bit of news: Stranger Things. We've heard for so long that Stranger Things was releasing this year, and I'll be frank, I didn't really believe him. So often TV shows get delayed, and because they'd been filming for about a year, only finishing up in January, I think, it didn't leave me with a whole lot of confidence. I figured, well, if it's releasing this year, ta-dum's gonna be the time they announce it, and thank God they did. I'm so very, very happy we're getting Stranger Things this year. Not only did we get some release dates though, we got small snippets of fresh content, which is more than I was expecting. I've seen a lot of mixed reception and complaints about the trailer so far, but I'm pretty used to Netflix releasing a trailer only a month or so out from the actual release, so this was a big plus for me. Today I want to go through all of the information we've got because now there's even more, and kind of see where I think the story's going to take us. There's not a whole lot to go on, so get your tinfoil hats out because I'll probably come up with some wild predictions. Not accurate necessarily, but I hope they're at least entertaining. With so much released, I think I'll go through it in the order that it actually came out, just stating what's actually there / happening, and then giving my personal theories and opinions on it all. First up is the release date announcement trailer. The video goes for about 2 minutes, but there's a lot of repeat scenes from previous seasons. We start off with Joyce and Will sitting outside where she tells Will that she thinks about that night all the time. The night where, in her words, it came for you. This, of course, being the night that Will was transported to the Upside Down back in Season 1. She reiterates the night that all of this started. This is all accompanied by scenes from Season 1 and then morphs into Season 2, where we're teased with the words, "this fall" on screen. It then changes to Will's narration where he states that everything changed. We failed, but we need to be ready, alongside clips from Seasons 3 to 4. Following that, we got a release date for Volume 1, which is the 26th of November, Volume 2, which is Christmas Day, and then the finale, which is New Year's Eve. Then there's some very quick shots of various scenes from the upcoming season. We have Joyce with an axe protecting at least 4 kids behind her. There's Will, I think Robin, possibly Erica, and one of the new children that was cast this season. They seem to be in some type of barn. The lights are flickering, and then we see some wooden barn doors banging inwards. The next shot, we have Mrs. Wheeler hugging Holly, both of them looking frightened towards something we can't see. There's Lucas sitting behind Max, who's still in hospital unconscious. Dustin and Steve are back together in what seems to be the Upside Down, but who knows anymore after the tear into Hawkins. We see Alan Hopper, where Eleven's screaming and crying whilst he tries to comfort her. There's 2 characters who aren't super clear, but I think based off other people's assumptions, they're Hopper and Al at what looks to be a wall of those vine tentacle things. There seems to be some sort of body in a sack attached to the wall. Next, we have Mike protecting 3 new children. At least, I think they're new. I don't recognize them. Alongside Joyce carrying what seems to be an unconscious Will. Maybe he's mildly conscious, but certainly not doing too great. We then have some soldiers' feet on what looks like a metal flooring that's banging upwards. There's a few different angles of that, with the soldiers all pointing their guns towards it. Finally, we have Will looking very frightened and screaming for people to run, the Stranger Things title screen, and that's it. So that's everything within the trailer. Before I jump into my thoughts, we should probably cover the fact that there's one brand new still as well. They basically released high definition screen caps of the trailer, with one additional one of Eleven staring something down with Hopper at her side, aiming a gun. This seems to most likely happen before the screaming, so I fear something's gone wrong. We also got a synopsis which reads, "The fall of 1987. Hawkins is scarred by the opening of the rifts, and our heroes are united by a single goal, find and kill Vecna. But he's vanished, his whereabouts and plans unknown. Complicating their mission, the government has placed the town under military quarantine and intensified its hunt for Eleven, forcing her back into hiding. As the anniversary of Will's disappearance approaches, so does a heavy familiar dread. The final battle is looming, and with it, a darkness more powerful and more deadly than any they've faced before. To end this nightmare, they need everyone, the full party, standing together one last time." Even though it was revealed around 6 months ago, all the titles for the episodes, considering we're going to be theorizing about what happens with these clips, stills, and synopsis, I feel like they could be relevant, so we'll just do a quick refresh. There's 8 episodes altogether. The first 4 will release on the 26th of November, and they're The Crawl, The Vanishing of, and then it's Blank, The Turnbow Trap, and Sorcerer. Then the next batch releases on Christmas Day, it's episodes 5 to 7. They're called Shock Jock, Escape from Camazotz, and The Bridge. The finale, which releases on New Year's Eve, is called The Right Side Up. Now that's all the information we have, and whilst it's more than I expected, these episodes are basically all movie length now, so it's pretty difficult to guess where the story's going to be headed. I do have a few ideas though. For one, the setting seems to take place around 18 months after the end of Season 4. If we remember, the previous season took place around the end of March in 1986. This season's taking place around when Will got taken, but in 1987. So it's the end of October, early November-ish. I would suggest the first episode is where we're going to see Eleven go into hiding, and then we'll do a time jump shortly after that. The Crawl title kind of insinuates moving and hiding, and that's what I think she's going to be doing, alongside Hopper, of course. But I doubt they'll be completely isolated. They'll still have to be able to communicate with the main team. I have no idea how they'll accomplish that, but I'm sure Dustin will come up with something. I also think we're going to get a flashback to when Eleven escaped from the lab. Didn't we see in Season 1 that a piece of her hospital gown had torn on the pipe leading to Hawkins' lab? She would have had to crawl through there. Plus, she recognized Will from the photo in Mike's bedroom. I think it's possible she saw Will running away from the monster and hid because she was frightened. Maybe it was just from some vision she might have seen in her mind, but I think this could be the perfect setting to learn more about whether Will was taken specifically, which I think most people do assume, I'm certainly in that camp, or whether it was by chance. This could help explain Vecna's connection to Will and how best to beat him. Not that we'll get all the answers in episode 1, of course, but just some hints, just setting things up. The vanishing of unnamed character definitely makes me think that Vecna's going to be back to his old tricks, although I don't think it's going to be the same reason as before. He just needed those particular people to open the rift between the upside down and the right side up. Here, I think it's going to be more personal, trying to draw the heroes closer to him in the hopes of either finishing off 11 or getting to Will. I think he needs both of those things to happen in order to succeed. I suspect that Nancy, Steve, and Robin really damaged him, and he's been in hiding in order to regain his strength, but I think that he needs/wants a proper body. No one wants to be walking around like Frankenstein's monster. It can't feel great. His eyes are for sure set on Will. The reason for his connection to him, though, it's as good a guess as any. The Turnbow trap in episode 3 is where I'd estimate they'd try to get back whoever's lost and possibly trap Vecna. I think that's where a lot of the clips have come from with this trailer. The initial talk between Joyce and Will most likely happens in episode 1, just setting the scene and where the characters are emotionally. Most of the other shots, though, are battle heavy, so with Joyce protecting the kids, I'm pretty sure that's part of the trap. There's no way they'd be set up in a barn like that with an axe ready with a bunch of kids if it wasn't for a particular reason. Hopper and 11 are also probably part of the plan, hence why they're in the upside down. Maybe Holly and Mrs. Wheeler are part of the trap too, although that kind of seems like big stakes for characters that haven't been aware of all the antics until this season. They would have to know by this point, surely. Maybe that'll just get explained off screen. Either that or Mrs. Wheeler doesn't find out until the vanishing. We haven't seen Nancy and Jonathan at all in this trailer. That's either a big giveaway or a red herring. I lean towards red herring. I'm pretty sure it was leaked that the character who vanishes has the last name Wheeler, but it feels odd to snatch Nancy after Vecna's already invaded her mind. It also makes sense to target the Wheelers to cause emotional anguish for Will, considering his feelings for Mike, which Vecna probably knows about. It's definitely not going to be Ted because no one cares about this man. And I seriously think the Duffers would love the gag that he just remains completely in the dark about everything going on forever. They did recast a little sister though, so I'm sure it's going to be her. It just makes the most sense. She's also been in scenes where the creepy upside down things have happened and only she's noticed. It's almost like she has a bit of a connection to it too. Like I said, I don't think it's Vecna's plan to just straight up kill her. I'm sure that's not for sentimental reasons though, but more pragmatism of emotional manipulation to make the rest of the team more vulnerable. Not to mention it could be somewhat vindictive. I'm sure he's really pissed at Nancy for causing the most damage to him back in season 4. I reckon he'd love nothing more than to get back at her this way. We know he's very emotional with how he reacted to 11's rejection and how he punished his father by keeping him alive. At least, I think he did. So taking Holly just to prove a point feels very Vecna-coded. Maybe that's where Mrs. Wheeler discovers the truth and is the source of the scene where they're both frightened. It would also give her and Joyce a lot more camaraderie, considering both of their kids would have been snatched by Vecna. So yeah, Holly vanishes, and that's where they then come up with the plan for the trap. You then have Sorcerer. To me, this is the biggest reference to Will. He's always the wizard in their D&D campaigns. What is a sorcerer, if not a more intimidating name for wizard? It also has a slightly more dark flair to it, I guess. I would say that the trap is somewhat successful. They most likely rescue Holly, but in exchange, Vecna somehow possesses Will. This will lead to a cliffhanger at the end of episode 4, where we'll have to wait a month to get some sort of continuation. Lovely. The next episode is Shock Jock. This is where I think everybody's going to come back for round 2 to try to rescue Will and defeat Vecna. I don't have much to go on, but I have a feeling that this is going to be a Dustin-heavy episode, and this is the perfect opportunity to let his curiosity door swing wide open and let loose all his ideas on how to save Will from possession. The next episode, after a break, always tends to be a bit more lighthearted and regroup with a lot of thoughts and exposition, and I think this might be the best place to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if that shot with Steve and Dustin we got in the trailer is from this episode specifically. Next, we have Escape from Camazotz, if I'm saying that right. To me, this feels like a big episode. In mythology, apparently the name Camazotz refers to a bat god associated with night, death, and sacrifice. This builds even more on my thoughts about Dustin's involvement with the previous episode. The bats in season 4 killed Eddie. I could see some significant PTSD coming in and rocking Dustin to the core. After being such a big help in previous episodes, and kind of the level-headed one in general, I'm sure his friends can come in and help him here. I also think that this might be where they get a small win. I wonder if Will manages to break free here, or whether Max comes out of her coma. Something big has to shift in this episode, but they're certainly not out of the woods. I also think that this episode's the one where we're going to have the full revelation of Will's relevance to the Upside Down and to Vecna. All the secrets I think would have been out by this point. Vecna needs to be vulnerable, and they need time to really execute their plan on bringing about his downfall. The bridge, I think, is going to be the next big task. The group will realize that 11 will most likely have to battle Vecna in the Upside Down, but she'll need a way back through before closing it forever. That's where the bridge comes in. They need to construct something tangible for her to come through. It could even be for more than just her. The whole group even. Somehow I think it's going to go horribly wrong, and Vecna's going to have one more ace up his sleeve. namely a huge monster. And this is where I think we're going to end on a second cliffhanger and have 11 possibly isolated from the rest of the group once more. To rescue 11 and save the day, I think Will is going to have powers. Vecna's going to have given him some by possessing him, and he's going to be instrumental in the finale. To add to this, I wouldn't be surprised if Max and maybe even Holly also have some sort of powers. It could add to the idea of the 4 rifts to close the Upside Down for good, and make everything right side up again. The Upside Down won't just be closed off from the world, but I think it's going to cease to exist at all. Those are my overall guesses for the outline of the story. There's obviously a whole lot more I haven't touched on. There's the whole Stancy/Jancy storyline and how that gets resolved. Please, for the love of God, let Jonathan have something going on in his life other than romance. I'm a Jancy shipper, but the dude was my all-time favourite from season 1 to 2, and he deserves better than just being a no-hope loser. I definitely don't want Eleven and Hopper to be permanently isolated from everybody else, which I don't think they're going to be, but there's always that risk. I want more Hopper and Joyce romance. There's definitely going to be some military subplot, which I struggle to see how it's going to be remotely interesting, especially since most of the key characters are dead now, unless somehow Robin and Steve take over and rule the roost. We also need to give Mike something to do, because he's more than just a love interest to pine over. I'm sure Callie may return at some point to help out and round out that story. Also, it may be an unpopular opinion, but I dig a corny epilogue and totally think it'd be deserved. Basically, there's so much storyline left untouched that I can't puzzle out over these small clips. I'm probably very wrong, but I'm also very impressed with what I've come up with so far. In any case, we're going to have to sit on this for quite some time. I don't think we're going to be getting any proper teaser trailers until Comic-Con season or later. They tend to only hype up releases 1 or 2 months before it actually comes out these days. I'm sure we'll get something on Halloween. Maybe on the 6th of November as well, the day Will was taken. Unfortunately, it seems that I was somewhat correct in the release dates in hindsight. I checked and saw that for Australia, we're not going to be getting them until a day later because of time zones. So technically speaking, I was right in assuming that we'd get season 5 of Stranger Things next year, because it's going to release on midday of the 1st of January here. At least the episodes will be long. They'd better be if it took a year to film them all. I'm sure the finale is going to go to 2 hours at least, although I'd be happy with a full-on Lord of the Rings extended edition type length. Overall, even though we didn't get much, I'm still hyped and I can't wait to see how it ends. It feels bittersweet now that we're close to the final season. Not ready. With all that being said though, these have just been my opinions and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the trailer? Are you excited for the final season? How do you think it's going to play out? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment and subscribe and let me know.